This is INCRadio, DCEM 954, the voice of truth, the official radio station of the Church of Christ or Iglesianicristo.
Out, we're going to be talking today about a super important topic, which is very relevant considering this weekend. It's going to be the DNA of leadership, Sister Joy. And you know, DNA, as we know from a scientific standpoint, are the components, right? They are the components that make up the body. They are all the building blocks, if you will. And today we're going to be talking about those same components, but how they apply to a leader and how leadership is comprised of all of these different elements and why they are so important. So let's just jump right into the topic, because as you know, we are the fastest 30 minutes on radio, and which means we're 27 minutes, you know, we've got 27 minutes left.
Look as at it that, is. How the time is just flying. And, you know, I'm really interested in this topic because it's a constant, you know, I'm ready to learn and I'm ready to dive in. So let's definitely get into this.
Oh, that is awesome. Well, and you know, the thing about leadership, when we talk about leadership, there's so many different ways that leadership is defined, right, mm-hmm. Sister Joy? You know, people typically look at leaders as being like military leaders, mm-hmm. right, or heads of state, or folks that are leaders within specific organizations and companies, right? And CEOs and chairmen.
The term boss comes out, right? You just think, boss, right? Yes. Bossy. That's what I'm thinking of, right?
Right, and it's so hard because people don't really understand that there are two clear distinctions between mm-hmm. what you mentioned as a boss or manager mm-hmm. and a leader, because management is overseeing, you know, so that aspect of leadership is very similar. However, mm-hmm. if you're a manager, typically the people who are following you, whether they're employees or people that are within that organization, you know, often do so because that's the directive and it's out of fear of consequence, right? And managers are sitting there overseeing them and managing that team, managing their work. Mm-hmm. Whereas leadership is a little different, because leadership is inspiration. It's motivation.
I love
it's
that.
Being able to follow because of your belief, your faith, most importantly, your trust, which we're going to talk about in a little while, in those that are leading you. And those are all traits that are key components in leadership that we're going to talk about today. And why does leadership matter? Because, you know, we talk about it all the time. If there's not a leader, then that means that everyone's kind of doing the way they want to do them. Right?
Yeah,
it spawns chaos.
That's the exact word I was looking for. I'm like, oh, when you said when there's no leader, I'm like, oh, I can see the chaos going on. I can feel it already.
Right. Well, we talk about the different types of leaders, right? So, actually going back, when we talk about the different types of leaders, mm-hmm. one of the key things that I think is often forgotten is those that lead in the household. Because it's not just leaders of organizations and companies and you know, countries, for example, mm-hmm. but even being a leader in your household is extremely important to understand that these same traits we're going to talk about today apply to you as well.
I love that, Brother Robert, because it's true. A lead, and I mean, when we hear that word, I mean, leadership really starts in the home, right? And then even going deeper
Beautifully
than that,
said.
right? Mm-hmm. It's even within us, because we have to learn to lead ourselves, right? In order for us to lead others, we have to really work on these things. So this is definitely something that's not just focused on something corporate or something. If you have a group of people under your wing, this is definitely something that we can all take individually and learn and grow with. So. Yep.
Well, and like we said, so DNA means that these are the components, these are the building blocks. Mm-hmm. So here are the things that we wanted to point out that are some of those key components. And of course, one of the first things for a leader, because if you're the person who's leading, whether it's an organization, it's a household, whether it's a company, you've got to have vision, right? And so, you know, why is it important to have vision? Because vision is what gives direction. And we talked earlier that with a lack of a leader, then you have absolute mayhem and chaos. And I'm sure we've all witnessed chaos and mayhem in our households, right?
Oh, yes,
So,
for sure. Or if you haven't witnessed it in your own, I'm sure like when you go out and you're like, oh gosh, there's some mayhem going over there.
yeah, they
And
need
the
some
first thing you think
leadership.
is, yes, exactly. That's the first thing you think of. You're like, who's leading that group? I mean, it could be someone leading the mayhem, but that's the point, right? So this is
Right,
why we're
right.
learning all this stuff. So like, what are those components? What are those things, those variables that help us to get to being a successful leader? So let's see.
Exactly. And having that vision means that you understand what the direction, what the goals, the mission, right? If it's a
Mhm.
company, they usually have mission and vision statements. And that's true in any organization because there has to be purpose, right?
Mhm. Ab
So
There you
of
go.
course
I think
when
that
we
is it.
right.
Purpose,
So
purpose, so that you can that absolutely love it.
a good leader understands the purpose and the mission of the organization and then understands how to get there.
Mhm.
So that's where vision, and it helps to drive decision making because when you
Yeah.
finally have all of that understanding of what the mission and what the goal is, then
Mhm.
you can help to drive that decision and you can help to make strategies to help get us there. Just much in the same way that
Mhm.
Brother Eduardo Vimanalo leads the church through very strategic decision making in everything that we do, right? Whether
Mhm.
it's in helping to get us to the point where, of course, as we've talked about before, the goal for this organization or the church, of course, is
Mhm.
salvation for all of us. And being able to achieve that is by following the steps that are laid out, and that is through the leadership of our beloved executive minister. Now, we
Absolutely.
also talk about emotional intelligence. This is kind of a buzzword. Emotional intelligence is it's kind of thrown around a lot
Yes,
in
it
front
is.
of
It is, and it's but it is such a key component. It is very important because, as we mentioned earlier, yes, having that clear vision, but mixing in when we were trying to define what's a boss, what's a manager,
right.
versus a leader. I mean, this is a very important key component in making sure that they have emotional intelligence, and it's not just all brains and but you definitely, I love how it says you have to understand and manage emotions, and that's starting within. It's right. It's internal too. So, but not just internal, but you also have to be in tune to those that you're also, who are under your wing, those that you are leading.
Exactly. And emotional intelligence, and I'm glad that you brought that up because you can maybe understand your emotions. Like I know why I get angry. I know why I get sorrowful. I know why I do things.
Mhm.
The key to emotional intelligence, as you said, is managing it, meaning that you
Mhm.
don't allow those emotions to be what drives your
Yeah.
decision making, right? And
Mhm.
emotional intelligence also means that you not only understand your emotions, but you also have insight and you understand the emotions of others, the people that you work with, the people that you're
And
leading.
yeah, and that's a lot of work. We always hear that.
Exhausting.
Yes, it is. It can be. It really is, and it's not something. And let's understand here. This is not something that you snap and it's instant. It's a constant work in progress. It's kind of like in order to be, and you can relate to this. In order to to cycle, right, to be good at something, at this, it's constant work. And emotional intelligence is not something that we're all born with. We really got to
Right.
work on this. You got to build
It's
that muscle.
you got to develop it. You got to develop
Mhm.
it, and you've got to take the time. And that's why I think the word empathy is so important because
Yes.
empathy, by definition, means that you actually can empathize or you can
Mhm.
feel and understand the emotions that other people are experiencing. And emotional intelligence is a key component of a leader because if you just go through the process of leading an organization without taking into account how other people feel, then
Mhm.
you're going to be
Oh,
stepping on a lot of toes,
exactly, and
right?
that's where you're gonna lean more towards the boss, right? The
Right.
bossing and managing
Exactly.
versus leading. Absolutely.
Exactly. 100%. And then we get to, of course, the third component of a good leader's DNA, and that's integrity.
Oh.
When you talk about integrity, you hear words like ethics, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
truth and being honest. And,
Mhm.
one of the key things about that is obviously being able to demonstrate integrity
Yeah.
is what builds trust. And I
Mhm.
mean, trust is pretty important when it comes to being a leader, don't you think?
Yeah, I absolutely. And I think you also use a really important word. You're building trust. So you have to be like what you said, trust and building. Those go hand in hand. That's something that is built. It's not like, again, you snap and it's instant. It's definitely something that is, within, and you build it not only in yourself, but with the others that are in your group. And then, and become very influential from that point on, because it's just part of your DNA, right?
Oh, wow.
So,
Way to tie in the title,
right
Sister
now,
Joy.
and I was just like, oh, look, you see how that all just goes together?
Yeah, it's so true, because building, right? That's a key word. It's very intentional that we use the word building, because building means that it's not something you just walk in all of a sudden and instantly people trust you, right? You can't come into an organization and just expect that people are just going to trust you when they don't know who you are, they don't know what your values are, they don't understand what the basis of your decisions are. You've got to build it.
And I think nowadays, I think you said that, right? Because I think a lot of people now, I mean, including myself, I will admit to this, it really will take a lot. Like, you can't just walk in. People are a little bit more guarded. Like, okay, let's build something here. Let's start off on step one here. Like, who am I? Who are you? So I think that's really, it's definitely really important. I think that's, yeah.
And it takes time to build that, right? People have to understand that you aren't going to have something that, trust is not something that just overnight is going to happen. And that's going to be done through a series of proving yourself, literally proving yourself that you're trustworthy. And that means that you're making decisions using emotional intelligence and applying it to the vision that you've laid out to the organization. So you notice how, just like we talked about with DNA and the building block, all of these things are building upon each other.
Yeah.
The fourth one is adaptability. I think it's really important that a good leader has to be pretty adaptable, meaning that you can pivot and you can manage change, because, things don't always go your way, right? They aren't.
Ain't
Or
that
do they?
the truth?
Do they? I don't know.
So true. Yes. Especially in this time and in the times that we're living in now. I mean, things are so rapid, so quick, and information is so readily available. Leaders today, everyone's got to be on your toes. You have to be on your toes, because before, even, let's just talk about 5 years ago. 5 years ago, as leaders, you have this information in front of you. This is the current data. This is what we're going by. But now, no, we are faced with, the more that we advance, the more knowledge that's available. It is, adaptability is really key, really, really important, because those things, that data, that information can shift so quickly. So you have to be ready, definitely ready.
It is. And the people that you lead have to be able to understand, because this goes all the way back to, why do you have to have a visionary leader? It's because it's someone who's going to help to prevent the chaos and the mayhem from occurring, right? That I can actually revert back to that if a good leader isn't adaptable, meaning that if you're so rigid that the only way things are going to work is the way that you've laid them out, not knowing that other circumstances, other priorities can come into play, then it's going to be very damaging, because at that point, all of a sudden now everything that you had planned just goes out the window. There's an old saying in boxing, Sister Joy, I don't know if you've ever, if you, Brother Billy, watch boxing. There's an old saying that says, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. And it's like you're scratching your head wondering, well, you know what? That's true. And we live in a world today where there are going to be punches flying all the time, and you've got to be adaptable, because that means that you're ready to be able to tackle. You've planned things out, and you understand that there is always alternatives. There's always the plan B that they talk about, because the fact that the plan didn't go as you originally had expected it to doesn't mean that everything should fall apart. So, and another word here is resilience, right? Resilience.
Yes.
Love that word. It's a fancy word, but I love that word.
I do too.
And it just means, resilience just means inner strength, basically, to be able to overcome. It doesn't mean that just the minute that you have adversity and you face challenges, you just fall apart.
I think of that quote that you just mentioned. I mean, resilience, what I think of and what I picture, I visually have this picture that you're punched, but you just get up and then you just keep going. You fall, but it's not the fall. It's the part of just getting back up, and then you just keep moving forward. You keep your head up, and you have that vision. You still have that vision, and you're still strong enough, to have that emotional intelligence to be in tune with, okay, listen, we have a goal, we have a mission, and you keep going, right? And that's what I think of when I hear the word resilience and
Yeah.
adaptability.
I mean, in being resilient is, again, it's another skill. It's like what we talked about before. It's something you have to develop, right?
Oh,
Resilience is not something that, for some people, they're pretty resilient. You hear people describe them as, oh, nothing sticks to them. It just kind of, they just let things go. And
mhm,
those are all parts of resilience. It's just not
mhm.
that you just let things go. It's because you know how to handle them. There's a very
Exactly.
clear difference between ignoring things and knowing how to
Yeah.
deal with them and
Yeah.
being able to manage them. That's resilience.
Mhm.
And being able to look at it, especially when your plans don't go the way that you thought,
Mhm.
um, it's a key component when you're leading people, because they have to be able to see that you can get them through. Because again, going back to integrity, they've got to
Yeah.
trust you,
Yeah.
right?
Look at
And
how
that's
all of these are tying in. I mean,
yeah,
just discussing all these points. I mean, doesn't it make you feel you feel like you're working at it, right? You're like, okay,
yeah,
yes, this adversity is coming, but okay, I still have to be clear. I still have to manage all these emotions. I'm still hurt from being falling. Nope, I got to stick. Nope, nope. And you feel it, right? It's also got this physical, component to it too, where you're like, okay, yes, I really got to focus. I really got to stay on top of it. This is my mission. Keep going, keep moving forward. Oh, wait, we got to pivot. Like you said, we got to adapt. So these are really all tied in together, and they work together. They really, and we have to allow them to all work together, because
absolutely.
this is what
Yeah.
makes it successful.
And it's like we're in a lab, right? We're
Yes.
building all of these components together,
Yes.
and they're all very structured. And
Mhm.
of course, here, the fifth one, this is the one that you probably hear about the most,
Yes.
right? And it's not that it's the least important because it's last on the list, but it's one obviously that people look to all the time, and that's the ability to communicate. Because
Yes.
as a good leader, if you can't communicate to the people that you're leading,
Mhm.
then how are they ever going to get the message about what the vision is? How are
Yeah.
they ever going to get the message, that
Exactly.
we've got to stay true to course, even though the plan, went awry and I got punched in the face.
Yes.
You got to
Yes,
know
exactly.
how to
I'm all
communicate.
right, y'all. Well, let's
Yeah,
keep
exactly.
going.
We're
Right.
good. We're good. No, it's the importance is you've got to be clear, right?
Yeah.
A leader who can't communicate clearly, because the
Mhm.
people, you've heard the term like mixed signals, right? you can't you
Mhm.
can't send mixed signals. You can't say one thing and then do something else. You've got to be clear. That's part of integrity, going back up
Exactly.
to 2 bullets, right?
Absolutely.
You've got to be clear. You've got to be concise, meaning make it short. You don't kill them with the length of how you plan on doing things. You've got to make them short, because that way they can digest the information.
Mhm.
People don't realize that if you go on too long, which is probably why it's a good thing we're only 30 minutes.
We could go
If
on.
you go on
No, we
too
could
long,
keep going.
you lose your audience. You got to keep it concise, and it's got to be compelling, meaning you want them to engage. You've got to get them to engage with you, because engaging, meaning that they're included and participating in that communication, helps them to feel like they are part of an organization, which is
Exactly.
what you were leading, right?
And nowadays, I mean, communication is just, again, we are living in such an advanced time where information is so ready and available, that communication is like what we talked about on our last show, right? It could be via text or messages. So that communication, in order for it to be clear, sometimes it needs more clarification,
Oh yeah.
and so it's so key, and it's so vital. Again, let's go back to some of these other traits. We have to be emotionally intelligent. Okay, was that message clear? And if you didn't get a response, or if we didn't get a response when it comes to that, how can I clarify this, or how can I engage? Like, as you mentioned, how can I make sure that this message is, the context of it is actually being delivered and used in the way that it's supposed to be intended to, versus something else. So definitely that active listening, and then being open to feedback.
Oh,
This, yes, without,
it's so hard for new leaders to be open to feedback, because they look at feedback as what? Criticism, right?
exactly,
And
yes.
that's not what it is.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to be open to it, because it's the only way you're ever going to grow, and it's the only
Mm-hmm.
way you're ever going to connect, because being able to take that feedback is
Yeah.
one way you're demonstrating
Yeah.
empathy. right?
Absolutely.
And so it's all of these different building blocks are
Mhm.
important components. There's not one that's more important than the other. You
Mhm.
need to really
Yes,
consider each and every one of these as a part of the way that you should be leading an organization. So
absolutely.
so now that we know that we've got these five that are here, and there's probably in the strand of leadership DNA
Mhm.
hundreds more, right? But
Oh,
these are, the ones that we've talked about that are valuable in my years of leadership, both commercially and in the church. These five have always stood the test of time as being the
yeah.
key components. So,
I like how you
uh,
said in all your years.
yes, I know. Every show, I've got to remind people how old I am, especially now that I'm a grandfather. So,
I
I've
oh,
got,
I love that, right? I was trying to keep a straight face and trying to be emotionally intelligent there.
I,
I
I appreciate you for that, Sister Joy.
I
Well,
have
but
to
now
hold
I got to
back, but
ask you,
yes.
of these five, which one do you think is the most important? And this is personal. This is a
Mm.
personal opinion. So, what do you look for in leaders that you feel are super important traits?
I really do love all of these, and all of these are even now. I in my years of leadership, I think that I can always learn every time that I go over these things. But one thing that always shines bright to me is integrity. That's the one that
Oh,
always shines and like it speaks to me, and I'm like, yes, because integrity is again, it starts from the inside before it becomes external, right? We have to have personal integrity before we can even be leaders because it starts with being I love it right there. It's the quality of being honest and having strong moral principles, our values, our morals. That's our core right there. And if your core that becomes part of your character, your the way that you think, the way that you speak, what is in here, and I think that is something that really drives someone that can be a good leader. And what is a good leader? Someone that can inspire and positively influence you. And if there's something that we need to improve upon, it's like, oh yes, that's something that I need to be better at, something I can improve. So definitely, I think that's definitely a key, vital quality. I love it because yes, it
yeah, and
builds trust. Yes.
integrity. They've got to trust you, right?
Mhm.
And it kind of ties into what my personal favorite is of the
Ooh,
five that
what's
we
yours? What's
talked
yours?
about. It's empathy.
Ah,
Empathy. I feel that it's so important that good leaders connect,
mhm.
right? You've got to be able to connect with the people that you're leading. You've got to understand where they come from. And more importantly, you've got to understand where you come from, but
Yes.
you've got to manage your emotions. I've just seen too many circumstances where leaders allowed themselves to be driven by emotion, and there was nothing good about it when it comes
Mhm.
down to leading the organization. You've got to be able to connect with your team. You've
Mhm.
got to be able to work with them as an organization, which means you've got to take into account how each and every one of them feel. Because if it's all about you,
Yes.
then
Mhm.
it really doesn't mean that you're leading anyone, right? You
Exactly.
might as well just be doing it on your own. So
Mhm.
I think to me, empathy is probably my favorite or most important in terms of how it is that you should be leading an organization.
Mhm.
Now, we talked about developing these skills, right? And you've got to go through the process of
Mhm.
understanding how do you build upon these skills and how do you grow into these skills. And first, it's self-reflection and awareness. We talked about needing to be able to know your strengths, your weaknesses, know what you're good at, and be able to build on the things that you're not good at. And
Mhm.
you've got to always constantly self-assess. And
Yes.
I underlined the point.
Yes.
Self-assessment is not self-criticism,
Two totally different things. Yes.
right? Yeah.
Mhm.
Don't look in the mirror and go, oh man,
Yeah.
I'm bloated today.
I know. I'm
All right.
terrible. Oh, no.
Oh, I
Yes.
just feel horrible, and
Yes.
or man, I can't believe I said those. I said that in the speech. That was just the dumbest thing, and
Yes.
oh, I can't believe I messed up the plans that we had. None of that is productive, right?
Mhm.
None of it is productive. But self-assessment is what could I have done better? What? I should have taken this into account.
Mhm.
Maybe I should have taken so and so's feelings into that decision before I went ahead. and put that plan in motion. And self-assessment also means asking for feedback, right?
For
We talked
feedback,
about it
yes, I
earlier.
was gonna say, again, we
You
mentioned
know,
that earlier. Yes, feedback is very important.
it's super important to be able to know how good or how not good you're doing, because
Mhm.
that's the only way you're going to be able to grow. And growing also means continuing to learn.
Yes.
Continuing to learn. We live in an age where there's so many ways, so many resources available for you to learn. So, education and experience, it's critical. And don't be afraid to
Mhm.
look for mentors and
Yeah,
coaches and ask them and seek out the people that possess the DNA qualities that you value the most, because
absolutely.
it's an important part. And of course, for those of us here in the Church of Christ,
Mhm.
prayer,
Absolutely.
prayer, prayer, prayer. Pray constantly for
Mhm.
guidance in everything that you're doing, because in the end, we all understand that it's not us, it's our
Yes.
Almighty God that actually
Mhm.
helps us to be the leaders that we want to be, or to be able to build the organizations that we like to build. And especially for those of us that lead organizations within the church, prayer is just the most important
Absolutely.
uh, component of DNA, I think, for a solid leader. And also have faith, right?
Yes,
So you did the
absolutely.
work, you prayed,
Exactly.
but you got to have
Absolutely.
faith.
And I have to say that all these qualities, we can all think of leaders, right,
Hmm.
who possess and acquire these qualities, and one that always will, that shines to us the most is our beloved dear brother Eduardo Vimanala, the executive minister of the Church of Christ,
Yeah.
and the legacy and that he is building, and what he is teaching us, and he is inspiring us all, is and we mentioned, right, prayer. He's always reminding us pray and to develop that relationship closer to our mighty God. Such a beautiful thing. Such a beautiful
And
thing.
most importantly, he prays for us.
Yes.
Constantly
Yes.
prays for us, and
Yes.
that is such an
Mhm.
important aspect of it, because that obviously helps us to understand the importance of prayer, and knowing that he, with the global reach of the Church of Christ, the fact that he continually prays for each and every one of us is something that I think is immeasurable.
Yeah.
So it's again, we are so grateful that we have him to be able to help lead the church.
Mhm.
We wish him the best and may God continue to guide him here as we celebrate his 15 years of dynamic leadership, to our beloved leader, Brother Eduardo Vimanal, for example.
Absolutely. On behalf
But
of INC Radio Florida, we love you, Paul.
yes,
Thank you.
yes, Paul, we do. And sadly, we are down to the final 30 minutes again. Look at that. I mean, we are the
Where did we
fastest
go?
30 minutes on radio. I
We
can't
are.
imagine how many, it just flies by so quickly. We've got another great show that's coming up right after us. That's our friends over at INC Radio South Central States. Sister Arnie is there, of course, and Brother Russell. So please stay tuned for them.
Mhm.
But for now, we want to thank everyone who joined us in the chats. We wish that we could read each and every one of your chats. A lot of people were in there today.
Oh, we love
We
it.
are so appreciative of all of you joining us. But please stay tuned, because next week we'll be back on with another compelling topic here on INC Radio Florida. But for now, this is Brother Robert Topalis in Tampa, and for Sister Joy in Orlando, we wish you a happy Saturday.